Oh, yeah, there we go. Good morning. We have math in the morning today. We are continuing with those x-intercept and y-intercept. And today we actually have a PO because we're going to use our knowledge of that x-intercept and y-intercept. And today we are doing PO54. I can graph an equation in slope-intercept form. So we've learned about slopes last unit. We've learned about the x and y intercepts. We're going to use that knowledge. Please stop doodling. This is important. It is a PO. I want us to give all of our attention because this is going to be a two-day objective. We know that it is super important. We need to be focused so we can master this objective. So slope-intercept form is a way to write a linear equation that makes it easily graphable based on what the equation tells you about how that line moves across the plane. It's a lot of words that we don't quite understand, but I'm going to show you what it means so that explanation will make sense. So we use the slope-intercept form to be able to graph a line. When it's moving across the plane, we need to know what the slope is. Is it a steep line that we would want for our water slide? Is it that more narrow or that more evened out line that we would want for the ramp? Remember when we talked about those slopes, we talked about what the slopes look like. Slope-intercept form is going to help us know what that line looks like, how it moves across, what its slope is. So this is a super important equation that you will use for all the years to come. Seriously, Rosa, taking Calc 2, knows this equation, uses this equation, super important. Rosa's my middle. So, know it, love it, remember it always. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We are going to learn what all of those variables stand for. But just like we're going to talk about the Pythagorean theorem in a few units, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we will learn what those letters mean. Math 6 just learned the Pythagorean theorem. You're going to be learning it in a few units because they're special this unit. You are learning slope-intercept form. Lots of variables. We need to know what each variable stands for so we can plug in the information that we're given and solve for the unknown variable. So the x is the x value of any ordered pair on the line. Can you guess what the y is?
Same thing, but like y.
The y value of any ordered pair on the line. So the x and the y, easy to figure out, right? We've been using x and y. X-intercept, y-intercept, our ordered pairs with the x and the y. We know those. Now we have our two new variables. The m is our slope. And we know how to find a slope. We've worked with slope. The b is our y-intercept.
What about the x?
This is the information that we need for this equation, the slope-intercept form. This is what's important. Yes?
Why is the letter M for slope? Why is it just S?
Yeah. That is a really good question that I do not have an answer to. somebody way smarter than me created this equation. They know this formula, and that's what they gave it. So we just need to know. I'm thinking maybe possibly the S equals something else in some other form of math. So I don't know. I truly don't have an answer for that one. I just know it. Aiden,
Why is there no x-intercept?
there's just not. Okay, so we need to know the x and the y, we need to know the slope, and we need to know the y-intercept, because we can use this equation to find the x-intercept. We're going to see how we use this equation. We don't need that information for the equation. So there are 3 steps that we have to know to graph an equation in the slope-intercept form. So you have to know the equation, y equals mx plus b, and then you have to know each step that we're going to do. Do we have to do every step, Emily? Yeah, because Emily's my one that kept asking me yesterday, do we really have to write that down? Do we really have to write that down? Oh, we have to write down more. You are going to need to do each of the steps. So don't ask, do we really have to do it? Yes, yes, yes. First step. Here. Do we have all of this filled in? I want to move it up so we can see it better. So first step, you're going to plot the y-intercept it's where you begin Mr. Schultz came up with his reasonings for why we have the letters that we have. So it's where you begin, so that y-intercept, that's why it's the B. So we begin with the y-intercept, so you know that the y-intercept in our equation is the B. It's our first step. It's where you begin, y-intercept. Step 2, we're going to use the slope. What does the slope tell us to do? No. What was that, Gus? It's how the line moves across the line. So you're going to use the slope to get a second point. It's how you move, and that's why it's M. Is that officially why? Mathematically, I'm not sure. Mr. Schultz has given us these tips to help us remember. First step, we begin with the y-intercept, so the y-intercept is the B in the equation. Then we move with the slope. You do your rise over your run. That's how we move across our graph. So that's why the M is the slope, because it tells us how we're moving. Step 3, we're going to connect the points on the line. So you have your first point, the y-intercept. So that's going to be on the y-axis, right? Because x is always 0. Then we use our slope to find a second point. You're going to graph that, and then you just connect your 2 points. You're going to connect to make a line. So we're going to do this together so it makes sense. Very important. In a negative slope, only one of the parts, the numerator or denominator, is negative. Typically, The sign is put with the numerator so that we stay consistent in having that positive denominator and moving to the right. Every once in a while, they give you a graph where it's all the way over to the right is where you put your point. So you have to go backwards to go left to graph it. I think most of the ones that we are doing, we are going to the right. We know moving to the right on our graph is always positive. So that negative goes with the numerator, meaning you go down, right? So if it's a negative slope, you have to do that rise going down. Here's where the x and the y come in. If it's graphed correctly, any point on the line will work in the equation. This is how we check our work. Plug one in and check. So it's always good to know how to check your work. Did I do it correctly? So we're going to do a few together. So I'm going to move up. We need to remember our equation. Y equals mx plus b. I'm rewriting it down lower because I can't see the top of my page. You have it on the top of your page. Know it, learn it, love it. Y equals mx plus b. You need to know your 3 steps to do. So our first step, here's our equation. Y equals 2x minus 3. What is my y-intercept? Mario, be careful. If it's the y-intercept, remember my complete answer.
Oh, and 0, like.
So we have to put it as our ordered pair. That y-intercept isn't just -3, it's 0, -3, so we can graph it. So that's our first step, is graphing the y-intercept. So remember, when we see that -3 minus our b, it's not plus b, so that means it's going to be -3. So I'm going to graph that, 0, -3. Now I need to find my slope. What is my slope? Y equals mx plus b. Y equals 2x minus 3. What letter stands for my slope, James? The 2. Okay, but that's just one number. And I know that the slope is rise over run. So if I'm given a 2, how do I figure out how to move, James?
2, 0.
No, because you're saying it as an ordered pair, 2, 0. We don't want ordered pairs, that's not a slope. What do you think, James?
2 over 1.
Why would it be 2 over 1?
Because 1 means like you're just basically the same number.
Yeah, because 2 divided by 1 is 2. So they simplified it to a whole number. So if it's not a fraction, if it's a whole number, you know the run is always going to be a 1. So now I need to graph that, 2 over 1. So I'm going to start at the point I just graphed, and I'm going to do rise over run. It is a positive, so I know my rise goes up. How many up do I need to go? 2. How many for my run? 1. So now I have my 2 points on my line. So 2 was the slope. What is 3? Connect to make a line. So I'm going to not just connect my 2 dots and look like a segment. I want it to be a line. So this is important. You have to make it a line, friends. It has to have the arrows. Don't just connect the dots and have a segment. These are lines. So I will be looking for the arrows. You have to have them to be correct. So that is all we had to do there. Now it says, here's where the X and the Y come in. If graphed correctly, any point on the line will work in the equation. Plug one in and check. So I'm going to continue my line using that slope. So if I continued it, I would go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So I know what my line's supposed to look like. I'm going to take one of those points that I found using my slope, and I'm going to put it into my equation. So here, my ordered pair is 3, 3. So if I put 3 in for my X and 3 in for my Y, I'm going to see if that works. 2 times 3 is 6 minus 3. Does that equal 3?
Yes.
It does. That's how I check to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. I find that ordered pair using the slope. I take the X and the Y and I put it in for the X and the Y in the equation, and they should equal each other. 3 equals 6 minus 3. 6 minus 3 is 3. 3 equals 3. Does that make sense? So let's do the next one. Oops. So, first step. I have y equals negative 3/4 x plus 1. What is my first step that I have to do? I should see every hand in the air. Come on, friends. What's my first step? Emily. Find the y-intercept. How do I find the y-intercept? So, which of my letters, Emily, is the y-intercept? Which of my letters, which of my variables is the y-intercept? The B, because that's where I begin. My first step, so that means it's the B. So I know this is my B. So what is the y-intercept? I can't just say it's 1. It's always an ordered pair. So it's going to be what, Alexis? 0, 1. That y-intercept, always, always, always the ordered pair. That's what we talked about with yesterday's objective. Ordered pairs. So that was step 1. Step 2. What do I have to do now? Oh, wait, first I have to finish with my y-intercept. I have to graph it. X is 0, y is 1. So I graph my y-intercept. Now I'm on to step 2. What is step 2, Priya? Find the slope. How do I find the slope, Priya?
It's
The m. And when we look at our equation, the m is always in front of our x. So my slope is what, Priya? Negative 3/4. So it's negative 3/4. So how do I use that negative 3/4? How do I do my step 3? Evelyn,
Like, go down, but don't go all the way down to the root.
how far down do I go? I go down 3. So I start at the point that I already plotted, my x-intercept, and I know that rise is on top. I know negative means I have to go down. So I'm going down 3. 1, 2, 3. And what's my run? 4. So I go over 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember, that's how we use the slope. We're gonna plot that second point. Now we can do 3, drawing my line. So if I'm gonna check my answer, I want to find another point on my line doing that 3, 4. So I'm running out of room going down, so I'm gonna do the opposite going up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I know that another point on my line is going to be -4, 4. So I'm gonna punch those two numbers in, -4 and 4. 3/4 times -4 gives me what?
3/4 times -4 is 3/4.
So if I have, oh sorry, -3/4
Yeah.
times -4, these cancel out. Negative times a negative gives me my positive 3 plus 1 equals 4. And if this is 4, does that equal 4? It does. So that is my way to check to make sure I did it correctly. Evelyn.
So I know the line step is 0, 3, but I was confused.
Are you on this one?
No, for the second.
Oh, you're on the last one already? This one? Okay. So, hold on, because we haven't started it yet. So let's start the last one. Tell us louder what you just said.
I know the y-intercept is 0, 3.
Yeah, because our y-intercept is that last number, the b, and we put it as our ordered pair.
With the x.
Oh, there's nothing in front of the x. There's no m listed. What do you think that could mean?
0, because that's what you said was the 0.
Oh, I didn't say to put a 0 for your slope. Because what is 0 times a number? 0. And we don't want it to be 0. Mario?
0 over 1.
What is 0 over 1? It's 0. 0 times x is going to be 0. Gus? Why would it be 1, Gus?
Because anything times 1 is itself.
Anything times 1 is itself. Whenever you see a variable with nothing in front of it, you know that there's a 1 in front of it.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever, ever you see a variable with nothing in front, it means it's multiplied by 1. So that way, if I were to say x plus 2x, would equal what? X plus 2x equals 3x, because I know that this is a 1. 1x plus 2x equals 3x. So whenever we see an x with nothing in front, we know that there's a 1 in front. So how would I write that as my slope? Tatum? 1 over 1. Because I want my rise and my run. So whenever there's a whole number, you put the 1 underneath it, so you know what your rise is, you know what your run is. So I need to graph my 0, 3. I need to use my slope, go up 1 over 1, and I'm going to draw my line. Now I'm going to find an ordered pair to check. James? Oh, sorry, Aiden. It was Aiden's hand.
4, -3.
If I did 4, -3, that Okay.
Wait, I'm 5. I did 5.
Emily, what did you have?
5.
So I could do 2 and go up to 5. Yep, 2, 5 is on that line because 1 over 1. So I could plug in 2, 5 into my equation. So if I put 2 in for my x and 5 in for my y, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 5 equals 5. So Evelyn, what were you confused by? Okay. Any questions on how to do this? You have to make sure you do every step, and you have to remember these interesting things that we had. If it's a whole number, what do we put under it for our slope? 1. If there's no number in front of a variable, what number is it always? 1. Not 0. It's a 1, because 1 times the number is that number. So, let's look at our work. Remember I said I was making this a 2-day assignment. It's a 2-day objective. So our next work says graph the equation and show your work. I want you to show me each step. 1, what's your y-intercept? Write it, graph it. 2, what's the slope? Write it, graph it to find our next point. And then 3 is drawing your line. So I want to see, for each of these, I want to see the y-intercept. I want to see the slope. And then I want to see your line. So this, you're just drawing the line. But for each one of these, you should say what your y-intercept is, what your slope is. Do you have to write y-intercept every time, or is there a variable we could use? Yeah, you could call it b. b equals, and for slope, you could say m equals. At the top of your page, what do you think you should write? The formula, our equation. Y equals mx plus b. So this way you know what the b is, you know what the m is. If it's a whole number, to write your slope, it has to have a 1 under it. If for the y-intercept, it has to be your ordered pair, always with the 0 for the x. So I should see an ordered pair, I should see the rise over run slope, and I should see your line drawn. Does that make sense? We are not doing the second page today, or the third page, that last page. We're not doing that last page today. Just work on these 9 graphs for today. Okay? Any questions? So I need to see all 3 steps. Your B, your M, and your line. Okay? For my friends at home, we hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.